to be doing an acrylic painting, a landscape. We're going to start by misting our canvas. Just a little water. I don't want it dripping wet, just want it damp. And then I'm going to take some white gesso. White gesso is basically a loose white paint with a binder in it. Most of your canvases come already done with the gesso coating, but I want a wet surface to work with. Not only does it make our brushes easier to slide across the canvas, it does lighten the colors that we're going to be putting on the canvas. And if you need to moisten, keep your canvas damp, you can always go back and give it a couple extra sprays with just a little spray bottle, just enough to keep it from drying out. All right, the same dirty brush that I used the gesso to spread, I'm going to take my palette. I'm going to pick up a touch of red on one corner, and right in the center, little X strokes. And exaggerating, but it's just X strokes. I'm going to give it a nice glow right in the center here. I'm going to take a little bit more, and we're probably going to have some water. So down here, I'm going to pick it up a little bit more, just right down here. Since we're going to be doing water down here, you want to keep those lines straight. Up here, we do the little X strokes. Now I'm going to take that same brush, that dirty brush, I'm going to go pick up a little bit of phthalo blue, and then back to my alizarin. I'm going to mix those two together, get sort of a lavender. It's going to be more of the alizarin than the phthalo blue. You don't need a lot of phthalo blue. Then I'm going to start up in the corners. Same thing, the little X strokes. And if it's too dark, you can add just a touch of your phthalo white. That's the heavier whites to it. And I'm going to touch just a drop of water. My canvas is a little dry. If you're doing it indoors or it's wintertime, it does have a tendency to be a little drier in the house. Okay, I'm going to go back. Same color, but I'm going to add a little more blue to this. Same mix. And I'm just kind of tapping it into the brush. And then for the water, from the outside coming in. And I'm even going to take a little bit of that blue up in the sky. Right around there. All right, I'm going to now clean my brush. You just clean it with just plain water. And when I do it, I'm going to kind of squeegee the water off. And what I mean by squeegee, I'll take the brush and pull my fingers down over top of the water bowl. I have paper towel to dry the excess water off after I do that. And then with a clean, dry brush, I'm going to start in the center and start working my way out. And blend this. Keep working out. And it's just the X strokes. Get this all covered. And if I want to lighten it, I can even go in and pick up just a touch of gesso on there and come back in. I can even lighten some areas. Pick up a little bit on the corner, lighten a little area over here. And then I'm going to just go across. Same thing down here. I still have a little bit of that white in my brush. And my canvas is drying out, so I'm going to give it a mist of color. Make sure you don't do too much, otherwise the paint will be literally dripping off onto your floor. And then come straight across. And you can even use that pretty rough over here. Just if you got a dark spot that's a little too dark. A little more color in there. Okay, so we got the basics for our canvas. So I'm gonna just sort of clean that brush, just back into my water, squeegee the excess water off, take my paper towel and dry it. You can set that aside. I'm now gonna take my fan brush, and that's exactly what it is. It looks just like a fan. I'm gonna wet that. And I have two whites on my palette. I have titanium white, which is a heavy, thicker white, and I have the white gesso. I'm going to go into the thicker, heavier white. I'm going to coat that brush very good. I'm just sort of both sides. You can even wiggle it to get a little extra paint in it. And I've got it pretty fair coated. Now with the corner, just the corner, I'm going to start doing little circles. And basically, I'm pushing up to make cloud shapes. You can turn it over and use the other side. Back to my titanium white, maybe over here. And I'm going to flip it, bring that down there. I'm going to go back to my big brush, the one that is now fairly dry, and just with the corner of the brush, I'm going to blend out the base of this. Same thing on the other side, just the base of the clouds. And then I'm going to kind of very lightly lift up, and then go across. I'm going to go back into that white, load both sides. This time I'm going to touch one corner with the alizarin crimson, and then it's mostly white. But down the bottom, I'm going to start adding more clouds. You can see where a little bit of that pink, I'm going to pick up a little more of that pink on the bottom and blend that. And if you get too much, just wipe your brush off, come back, and blend a little more. Pick up some more of my white, with that touch of the alizarin on one corner. We're going to go on the other side. And then bring that right in through here. I'm going to pick up just a little more white. I want that a little bit higher. So you can change what you're doing. If you don't like the clouds. And then, like I said, the bottom, just the base. Wipe your brush off. Lift. And then straight across. All right, I'm going to take a little more of that alizarin crimson, mix with the white. I'm going to go a little darker than this. Then I'm going to come across with some stringy clouds. We're going to put some hills in here. I don't know if we'll see these, but just kind of tap, tap, tap along. I'm going to pick up some of the white. I'm going to add a little bit of the white loose gesso to that same white. And right on the tops where I put those streaks. I'm gonna put a few, and maybe even one here. Clean brush. I'm gonna just lightly pull that across. Just kind of mist those out. So we've got ourselves a nice cloudy sky. Take a look at it. Maybe up here you want this a little brighter, maybe a little more pink in it. You can still go back in and play with those clouds if you want. But I like what I've got here. All right, so I'm gonna take that brush. I'm gonna wipe some of that white off, leaving still some in there. I'm gonna go in to that mix of that alizarin crimson and my phthalo blue. I'm gonna get more of the lavender color, so adding a little more alizarin to it. You decide, you want it more towards the alizarin crimson, more towards the blue. And like I said, I'm gonna have still a little bit of the white mixed in. So now I'm gonna put some hills in here. So decide where you want your hills. Here, I'm just gonna take my, still using the fan brush, take it, come up. There's one hill. Pull that right off. That way. Maybe, oh, maybe here, a smaller one. Don't want them all the same size. You want them a little different. So now you got that. Drag that out underneath. Drag it out. I'm gonna go in, pick up a little bit of the white. Same dirty brush. Haven't cleaned my brush yet. I've only cleaned them. And then on the bottom, I'm gonna start with the bottom and work my way up a little bit into it, sort of giving a little mist on the bottom of it. And you can even come up on the lights coming this way. You can come up a little bit on the light side of the mountain. Leave the tops alone. Don't touch the tops. And then I'm going to drag that out. Okay, there's our first hill. Do you want a second set of hills? Go back in, just darken that original color, a little bit of alizarin crimson, a little bit of the blue. Deepen it a little bit, maybe more, maybe a little more towards the blue. And we're going to come in, and you want to leave some of this misty line in here, so we're going to come up and maybe another line here. I'm going to go back into some white along the base. So then we have another hill there. All right, this time I'm going to clean my fan brush. Wipe it off on my paper towel. I'm going to go in to a little bit of my white, just plain white. I'm going to drag some of that along. Maybe a little more. I'm going to go in and actually tap it, tapping it into my white, literally. And that opens that up. And right here, I'm going to go along the base, picking up more. Maybe there's some snow or something laying out here. I'm also gonna pull, I'm gonna pick up a little bit of that mountain color and pull a little bit into the water. And I still have the white on it, so I've got the combination. Just tapping, I'm just barely tapping the tips. And I still have that white with just the tips. And pulling. And the harder I push, the more that white hits and comes off. I'm gonna take my big brush, making sure it's fairly clean, and drag it across. I'm gonna go back to my whites. And I'm even gonna sort of drag it along that shoreline. You can even put a few lines out here if you want with that, but keep them thin. All right, I'm going to clean that brush again. I'm going to go back to my alizarin crimson and my phthalo blue mix. This time I'm going to go more towards the blue. And I'm going to really load the brush. And I'm just mixing it on the palette. And I got a lot. So here, I'm going to come over here. I'm going to put a tree here. Touch. And you're going to do almost a zigzag pattern. You're going to touch. We'll see. Keep it small on top. You can always make the trees bigger as you go down. You can even put a guide down here so you know where you're going. And I'm just using the corner and tapping back and forth. And as I come down, I push slightly harder. I'm going to flip it over because I have paint on the other side. And keep coming down. And I'm pushing a little bit harder, not smushing it, but, and I'm coming right to, oh, right about here. It looks good. I'm going to come back in, pick up more paint. If your paint's not coming off, it's drying, you can take your brush and just dip it into the water, kind of shake the excess off, and come back in to your palette with the mix of the blues and the alizarin crimson. Alizarin crimson's a deeper, darker red. It's not the bright reds. All right, I think this one, I'm going to put another one here. The same thing. And you can see how, because I moistened my brush slightly, it seems to want to come off the brush a little easier. You don't want it dripping. You'll end up doing a mud mix. All right, we got a tree there. Let's go the other side. Same mix, alizarin crimson, more blue this time. We're sticking more to the blues. This side, oh, we're gonna do a big one. Touch, and then back and forth. It's a little tougher going over the white, but keep working it. You have to go back, pick up a little more paint, you can. And like I said, you can always touch down here, give you a little guide to follow. And you're gonna get wider and wider. I'm just going to get more paint. And we've got one here. Oh, let's bring them down a little further. Since that's a big one. I'm going to come back, get my brush, give it a little more of a top. There we go. Bring a couple extra branches out, and you got pretty big here. All right. I'm going to clean that brush off. dry it on my paper towel. I'm going to go in to my phthalo white, the heavy white, but I'm going to pick up some of the white gesso with it so it's a looser paint. A thinner paint will stick to a thicker paint. So I've got that, and you can sort of tap it. It opens the brushes up, bristles up a little bit. I'll move that over a little bit for you. All right, and with the corner of the brush again, and you're not going to cover all the dark. You're just going to hit some of the branches. And the light's in the center, so more to that side of the tree. You can even touch a little up there. Let's flip that. All right, back to my whites. Touch. And the light's coming from this way, so now you're going to have more light on this side of the tree. All right, we got that. I think what I'm going to do is see how this faded. I'm going to come along and maybe along that shoreline, just kind of tap a little bit. In fact, I've got a palette knife. I'm going to take a little that same color from the tree and pick up just a little bit. Just scrape it across and picking up just a little roll of it on the end. Right by the shoreline, just lightly pull a little darker. I'm just going back for more paint and pulling out. Now I'm going to pick up a touch of the white. You can see the white roll and just kind of pull it down. So you still see blue. I lost it over here. And you can always pick up more. And then I'm going to kind of actually cut a water line. Actually, like you're cutting into it. Okay, so now we have our trees. We're going to come in and I'm going to build some land. So I've still got the white on it, but I'm going to tap into that blue lavender color that we use for the trees. So I've got the white up here and the blue here. Right here, just using the tips, I'm going to start pulling out, and as I push down, you can see the whites coming out. I think I need a little more alizarin crimson in that. I want it more lavender. There we go. I'm pulling that out. I'm going to do the same over here. And you can see as I'm losing the color, it's getting lighter. So now I'm going to go back into my whites, just plain whites. I'm going to start here. I'm not right under the tree, but out a little bit. And then over here. And I'm kind of pulling it in so that it looks like the snow is laying on top. And over here, it's kind of piled up. And it's coming out there. There. I'm going to go back in, still using that same dirty brush. Haven't cleaned it. I'm going to pick up some more of the alizarin crimson and the phthalo blue. And I'm going to kind of darken this color in over here. I'm going to touch some water. Not much. I just want to... There. See how that flows off the brush a lot easier? And watch the contours of the land. The snow's coming down, right down to the water. Well, I still got that dirty brush. I'm going to come over, do the same thing here. And what I'm basically doing is I'm putting dark so we can see the lights. You're not going to see the light unless you have the darks underneath it. And, oops, I got a little more lavender in it. That's all right. Maybe the sun's hidden there and it's picked up some of that nice bright reds across the snow. So now we got that. I'm going to clean my brush. Then I'm going to go back into my white, titanium white, and a little bit of my gesso. Thin paint sticks to a thick paint, so I want to loosen that up. So now I'm really loaded it up. I'm going to start back here and bring it. Watch the angles. You can see the snow's coming across. And you will pick up some of the darker colors, and that's fine. That gives you some shadows. Back in, loading my brush. Coming over here. And leave some of those darks. You want some of them shadows in there. Just going back, picking up more white. Here's another plane. And each plane pushes the painting further back. All right, so now we've got our snow laid out. Let's pick up a little more, maybe here, maybe here. I'm gonna add a little bit more. I'm going to take just a touch of the lavender and blue underneath, maybe under here. Barely, just barely touch along that water line. Just pulling a little dark under. Not much. And I'm even going to, maybe in here, a little shadow showing. Okay, I'm going to put that brush in the water and clean it. I'm going to go in with my knife, make sure it's cleaned off, and I'm going to go right where that gesso was, pull it out. I'm going to cut across. I'm going to get a little touch of paint on it, and underneath here I'm going to pull some water lines out. Almost like cutting into the canvas. And if you want, you can even use this little short end for some of these smaller places like here. Sometimes that's easier to control. And you can even take some, out here, some lines. Maybe some ice is forming out there. You can even take some of the blues if you want. Just to give it a little bit of different color. But basically we've got our snow. Take a look at it. Does it? Maybe you want more snow. Go back into my whites. Maybe you want it a little brighter here. Maybe there's a second hill here. So you decide. How much snow do you want? Do you like the shadows? I think we're going to put a tree in. So I have a flat brush here. We haven't used that. I'm going to wet it. I'm going to go in. Same two colors, alizarin crimson and phthalo blue. And I'm pulling it so it's a sharp. So I'm pulling it through one way and then the other way. Okay. So where's our tree going to be? And make sure it's a sharp edge. We're going to start up here, pull it right down, and push a little bit harder as we come down. I'm going to touch a little water. Same color. Get that sharp edge. Maybe have another one here. Pushing harder as I come down. I'm going to make this a little wider, just coming in here. All right, so we have 2 trees here. I'm going to take my knife. I'm going to pick up some of that white. It's a little mixture of the phthalo and that. And the light's coming from this way, so I'm going to stop and just lightly touch, pull. Pick up some more. And then tap, tap, tap up. Same thing on this one. Touch it, kind of give it a little pull. And then as we go up, tap, tap, tap. And this one I got a little wider, so I'm going to go in with some of the darks. Same thing with the knife. Do the other side. Just make that tree a little bit wider. All right. Clean that knife, put it down. I'm now going to take a twiggy brush. Oh, and don't forget with this. In fact, you know what? Before I do that, I'm going to take this. I'm going to put another limb right here, a bigger limb. So I'm going to bring that in. I'm going to pick up a little bit of white on one side. And I got the dark on the other. And you can bring that in. And drag it down. So now I'm going to put that in water. I'm going to pick up a little bit of white with this. Just kind of give it a little highlight. Now I'm going to come in. And that dark color we started the tree with, we're going to get it wet. Just lots and lots of water. So alizarin crimson. I've got other colors on here. We haven't used them. That's all right. We can do another painting some other time with those. But we're going to roll those. I'm going to sit there, clean my brush. I'm going to add some water to the whites. So now I'm going to roll this in the dark color. And then I'm going to drag one side through the white. Let me do that again. I'm doing the dark colors here. Literally rolling the brush. Then I'm going to drag one side through the whites. I'm going to come back up here and I'm doing a little jerky motion. If your hand's not steady. I'm going to put some limbs out here. Come back in, pick up more paint, same way. And you can even come back and make that limb a little thicker. Now I'm just picking up darks up near the top and pulling some nice little branches in, some thinner ones. I'm going to go back into my darks, pull it through that white again. Maybe there's a little bigger one here. It's got some highlights on it. And back into my darks. And maybe there's one right here. It comes over top of that mountain. You decide how many branches you want in it. Maybe this one goes behind. I think I'm going to pick up a little more white along this branch here. So we got ourselves a couple nice little trees. I'll go back to my fan brush. I'm going to pick up some white. It's the mix of the gesso and right here, maybe there's some heavy snows. The tree sort of trapped little heavy snow right there. I'm going to go over here on this side, back into my alizarin, crimson, and that. Same thing, white on one side, the other one. Maybe there's some weeds pulling up. Go back in, pick up a little more of my blues, my lavenders. And maybe even here, there's a few. Let's pick up some more of the darks. Oh, let's see. Let's get some more of that. Some of these darks here. Maybe here. There's a few. Pulling up over here. I can even put a few here. You decide how many. Then, in order to set those down, back to my fan brush. Pick up some more of the whites right here. Kind of touch the bottom. Follow the contours of the land. Pull that out. In fact, I think I'm gonna put a little extra white there. So we got ourselves a really nice painting here. If you're really brave, you can go back in some of that dark color. Roll the brush. And then I kind of, not only do I roll the brush, but I kind of drag it across to see, make sure I got a thin line. I'm going to set my finger in a dry spot on here. And a couple little birds flying in. Alright, I think we're going to sign this. Since I've got this nice and wet, this color here, just going to sign it with that. And let's see, here's a good spot here. And I think we have a finished painting. I hope you enjoyed this one.